Hi, I'm JB from Huffy, and today we're going to be going over how to assemble your 20-inch Summit Ridge Boys 6-speed bicycle. We got everything out on the table here. We laid everything out to make sure that we have all of our parts, and I did leave the white retainer into the front fork just so that the bike stands up a little bit better and it doesn't damage the table or whatever your work surface might be. We'll start at the rear of the bike. The first thing we're going to do is add the rear derailleur guard. It's this piece right here. There are two Phillips head screws that you're going to remove and then place the guard into place. And screw those in. Included in the box are some tools, and on the end of the Allen tools that we provide, or the hex wrenches, are Phillips head screw pieces so that you can put those together. So they look like that. And just make sure that they're good and tight. You don't have to torque them down too much, just kind of wrist tight. So now that's in place, we're going to go ahead and move to the pedals. So the pedals on bicycles are a little different than what the normal righty-tighty pattern goes. The right pedal is righty-tighty, the left pedal is lefty-tighty. You'll see some stickers on the cranks, such as this one right here, and on the pedals that signify which side is which. In case the stickers have come off your bike or you're doing this after the fact, the right side of the bike is always the side with the chain. So just keep that in mind when you're putting these parts on. The pedals themselves do have markings on them as well, so you'll notice on the end of the pedal you'll see a left or a right. And there's also stickers, left and right as well. So we'll go ahead and start with the right. We'll go ahead and get it hand started. And we'll get this in as far as we can by hand before using a wrench. All right. Included in the box is a multi-purpose wrench. So you can get that out. And you're going to put it on. Make sure the bike is sturdy, and make sure the pedal is tight so that it doesn't come off when someone is riding. We're going to go ahead and do the left pedal this time. So the left pedal does have a little arrow on there that kind of signifies you need to turn it left in order to tighten. Once again, just doing it hand tight, making sure that we don't strip anything. It is very important on the left side because it is a common mistake to think that you need to spin it right in order to tighten it. Go ahead and take your wrench and make sure that it is good and tight. All right, so now our pedals are on. We're going to go ahead and move to the saddle. You'll have three pieces that you're going to have for the saddle. You're going to have the saddle itself for the seat post or saddle post. You're going to go ahead and take the smaller end of the post, insert it from the front of the saddle, and then pull the post upwards. You're going to make sure that it goes all the way down to the stop, and then we'll try to find a good position for it. And typically you want to have it about perpendicular with the surface that you're working on as a good starting point. You can always adjust it later. Once we have that in place, we'll go ahead and tighten it up. It uses the same 15 millimeter that we just used for the pedals, and we'll use that as well for the front axle. So you want to tighten each side a little bit so that you get the same tightening on both, and that you get an equal amount of thread showing on each side of the saddle. Once you have that set, you can go ahead and make sure it's all tight and test fit it. This one's still a little bit loose. All right, so that's good to go. Now we're going to go ahead and add our reflector in as well. So you'll put it so that it slides up. There is a Phillips head screw on the back side of it here, and we're going to leave that loose for right now until we figure out exactly where we're going to position the saddle. So to tighten the seat into place, we're going to open up the quick release right here and just kind of turn the hand nut on the other side until we can't really turn it by hand anymore, or as if our fingers would kind of slip over it. Kind of adjust it in place just temporarily, and then we'll go ahead and close it. You want to make sure that this has some resistance and it's not too easy to close, otherwise the seat may move left or right or up and down when someone's riding it. This is a quick adjust, so any time that you need to adjust it for the rider, it's really easy to do. Just open up the lever and move it up and down. Once you do figure out where your rider is going to be riding at for the most part, you can then tighten the reflector so that it is visible over the rear tire. So now we're going to go ahead and move to the front of the bike. You're going to go ahead and get your handlebar assembly out, and sometimes you have to untangle the wires just a little bit, but you do want to make sure that it's in a position where the wires are on the bottom, not the top. There we go. So you want to have your handlebars looking like this before you add in the stem into the head tube. You want to make sure that the wires are in the front. Now the handlebars may be a little bit out of adjustment at this point, but we'll adjust that later. Just making sure that everything is not tangled up and that the wires go to the correct side of the bicycle frame. We're going to go ahead and add this stem in now. And you can adjust this as need be. The seat tube and the stem both have minimum markers on them. They are dashes that go across the tube, and you'll see them on both sides. So make sure that when you are adjusting these, that if you do have this up or down for the comfort of your rider, that you have it in the right spot and you're not too far tall on the tube there or too far tall on the tube back here. So we're going to go ahead and use the larger of the Allen wrenches that has been given to us and righty-tighty to make sure that it just kind of snugs up so that we can continue working on the bike. At this point, you're also going to remove the quick release front brake piece. So you're going to go ahead and just hold the lever in place and then pull that free so that you have those two pieces apart that way. And then we're going to go ahead and add the front wheel into the fork. As far as the orientation of the tread goes, you want to put the front wheel in so that the tread matches the look of the rear. So in this case, we're going to be adding it like this. Also going to go ahead and remove the plastic heap. And put our front wheel in place. There are dropout washers that are on the front axle as well, so you want to make sure those are on the outside. And then make sure that the hook on the dropout washer goes into the hole on the fork, and then tighten these up by hand. And just kind of give everything a little wiggle to get it settled in place. And you want to make sure that the tire and wheel combo is in the middle of the fork as much as possible as you're doing this. Sometimes it does get a little stuck off to one side. You just have to kind of wiggle everything into place. You might need an extra hand at this point, or you can also use the kickstand to keep the bike up. It is a 15 millimeter on both bolts on each side. You can use the tool we provide for you, or you can use a wrench or adjustable wrench if you have one handy. And once again, these are righty-tighty, lefty-loosey for when you're getting those tight. Once you have them tight, go ahead and give everything a wiggle to make sure that it's not going anywhere, and then we're going to go ahead and put the brake back into place. So we're going to go ahead and hold on to the one lever, pull the housing through, and make sure that's all in place. And that's how it should look. You can give the brake lever a quick squeeze to make sure that that's where it needs to be. And then if you need to, you can use the middle of the 3 Allen wrenches that we provide to adjust the brake pads as needed. You're going to hold on to the brake pad, loosen it. You don't have to take the hardware completely off. Just loosen it to where you can move it around a little bit where it needs to be, and then tighten it back into place. It doesn't have to be overly tight, it just needs to be good and snug. Once that's in place, you can squeeze the brake lever to make sure that the pad is in the right place. So we'll just give this a little bit of a spin. And you may hear the little rubber nubbies hitting the brake pads as they go around. That's okay, those will wear down over time, or you can trim them off if you want to. So it looks like this side over here could take a little bit of adjustment, so we'll just go ahead and loosen that pad up a little bit. Move it to where we need it to be, and then tighten it back down. It doesn't have to be gorilla tight or anything, just good and snug so that it goes where you need it. In this event, the brake is pretty well adjusted from the factory. If you do squeeze the brake and you happen to notice that one side moves more than the other, or one side doesn't move at all when you squeeze the brake, you can adjust it with the adjusting screws on each side. In this case, if we were squeezing the brake and only this side was working, we would adjust the side that's not moving by turning the Phillips head screw into and tighten about a half a turn until they move equally, like that. So when it comes to adjusting the handlebars, you're going to take the largest Allen wrench we provided you and loosen up the hardware on the front of the stem. It's right here. And then you're going to rotate the handlebars so that the white arrow that is on the gear shift is visible to the rider. So it's going to be right in this area here. Make sure that you center the handlebars into place. And we're going to rotate those up just a little bit and go ahead and tighten. This is also a great time just to make sure that you have all your cables well routed and that you don't have anything over the handlebar and coming around or going the opposite side that it should be. Sometimes it's just a little bit of a puzzle when it comes to putting the handlebars on. Quick note, you shouldn't have to remove any of the housings or wires from anything in order to get the handlebars on correctly. They should be good from the factory. You just kind of have to figure out which way to twist and turn it. At this point, we can also tighten the front reflector once we have the handlebar stem tight. It's a Phillips head screw on the top. And you can just rotate it so that the reflector is, for the most part, unobstructed and faces directly out towards any light source, like a car or house lights. At this point, you can also straighten the steering up a little bit if your handlebar isn't straight. You can move it left or right if need be until you get it to where it needs to be. And then you can also tighten that with the large Allen wrench on the top. making sure that at least the minimum marks are inside the head tube. Make sure that's good and tight as well. At this point, we'll go ahead and move to the rear of the bike so that we can make sure that the rear brakes are adjusted and the derailleur is working properly. All right, so we've turned the bike around so that you can see the rear brake, and we're going to go ahead and make sure that it's adjusted properly. So squeezing the lever, we can see that this brake does need some adjustment. This lever, or this side of the brake here, is not moving when we squeeze the lever, and this side over here is. To change that, we're going to take the Phillips head screwdriver portion of our Allen wrench and give the adjustment screw a full turn, and keep doing so until we see the movement balance out. So it looks like I might have done it just a little bit too much, so back that off just a little bit. So now it looks like our sides are pretty close, and we have equal movement on both the left and right hand side of the brake. All right, so now we're going to go through the adjustment process for the rear derailleur. From the factory it should work pretty good, but we just want to double check and make sure that it's good and it works properly and that everyone is going to be really happy when they get the bike so that it's good to go. So I'm going to move this a little bit closer so that's easier to see. Or you may want to have another person come help you with this process just to keep the bike up straight as you're kind of pedaling through the gears a little bit. And also the rear tire may touch the table as it's spinning, and it may leave little rubber marks on your table or work surface. So if you're trying to protect that as well, you may want to put a towel or piece of cardboard below the tire so that it doesn't cause any marks on your table. So I'm going to go ahead and hold the bike up. Going to put the kickstand in the up position. I'm just going to give just a little bit of a turn here just to make sure that the bike isn't doing any weird gear changes. And then I'm going to adjust the grip shift so that we're going to change a couple gears there. And then we're going to try this all over again. Lift up the rear of the bike, and it's changed a couple gears. And we'll set it back down. And now we'll go ahead and shift to the bottom of the range. And this will be the most difficult gear to pedal, which means it will also be the most difficult gear for you to do this by hand. So just be prepared for that when it does get to the bottom of the range. All right, so it does look like it has shifted all the way down. And it is in the bottom gear so that we know that we've gone through the whole range and it hasn't skipped a tooth or gone too far down. At this point, we're going to go back up the range. So give the shifter a couple clicks. Once again, raise the rear of the bike. And make sure that it works through there. Go ahead and keep clicking through the range so that it'll climb the gears. All right, so you can hear that. That means that we need to make a little bit of adjustment so that it is easier for the derailleur to get the gears to go up. So there is this screw here on the back where the cable housing meets the derailleur. You can turn that clockwise or counterclockwise to adjust the hanger so that it can change gears as it needs to. Turning it counterclockwise pushes the hanger closer to the center of the wheel. Turning it clockwise pushes the hanger away from the center of the wheel. So you want to make sure that you see what gear that you need to be in. So we're trying to get into the second gear, which is the second cog in the cassette. So we want to adjust the hanger so that it is more in line with the second cog. So in this case, we were too far out, so we're going to pull it in just a little bit by rotating. And what I'm doing is I'm looking down to kind of get an alignment between where the chain is resting in the hanger and where this is resting on the cassette. So right now we're still in that third gear instead of the second gear. So I'm just going to move the hanger over so that it is closer to that second gear. And then I'll give it another pedal and see if that fixes it. All right, so we're not getting the clanking noise anymore, and we've achieved that second gear. I'm going to go ahead and put it into first gear. And it has changed into that gear with no problem. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check that the hanger isn't too far close to the wheel and that it is lined up with the largest chain wheel on the cog. And it looks like it's good there. So that's our adjustment process for the rear derailleur. All right, you can put the kickstand back down, and we're pretty close to wrapping up the assembly of this bike. So right now we're just going to make sure that everything is tight that we've put on the bike, just in case. If we do know the height of our rider and we've adjusted the seat as necessary, you can go ahead and tighten the rear reflector with the Phillips head screwdriver. So that one's good there. Make sure that the seat doesn't move at all. Make sure that the stem and handlebar attachments are tight and that they're in place. Make sure that your front wheel and handlebars are aligned so that they're pointing in the same direction. You can make sure that your front reflector is tight as well. Make sure that your brakes work on the front and back, and you have equal movement on the left and right side of each brake. The last thing that you can add to the bike, and you'll find it in the owner's manual bag, is this little black plug. It simply goes onto the hardware that holds the handlebar stem in place. Okay, so in the owner's manual there is a list of parts for the bike, so if you are missing anything, you can look in the owner's manual and find out what you're missing. And then you can call our customer support, which is at huffybikes.com/contact, 1-800-872-2453. You can call that number and they'll help you out getting the parts that you need so you can complete your bike in the event that something is missing or broken. There's detailed instructions on each thing that we went over today, also in the owner's manual, so make sure you check it out. There's lots of safety recommendations in there as well. Always wear a helmet, obey local laws. And at this point, I think you're able to get out there and enjoy your new Summit Ridge 20-inch bicycle. This is JB from Huffy. Have a great day and get out there and have some fun.